be 7:65. So it depends on their end goal as to what they're going for. No, no.
That happened when there ended up just being two of them, and they just both be like 4 feet.
So yeah, then there's 4 feet. It's fine. I think the 7 are like 6 and 4 inch heels.
A white fan size.
So no high heels for you. I'm sorry.
No, I don't usually high heels.
No 5-inch heels for Eli.
Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Everybody who's here in person and all of you joining us online. We want to welcome any guests here for the first time, but first we'll ask Andrew to introduce his family who's here. It's always nice to have extra Meermans and Andrews. Or, yeah, either one. So, you aren't mic'd, but for those who are here, introduce your guests, since we're an intimate crowd this evening. Great. Good. Any other visitors want to say hello? Any people who are visiting online, please introduce yourselves and we'll say hello to you. We'll start with our candle blessing, page 2, in our prayer books, I'll light the candles and please join with us. We are people that are quite good at looking back through history. It's today, in fact, was one of many tragic days in Jewish history, 80 years since the terrible events at Baba Yar, for those who've studied the Holocaust and the pogroms of Europe. We do that so often. We look back and we remember the painful, hard times, and then Shabbat calls upon us to do the opposite, to look back on this week, to find the parts that were the best parts of this week, to bring them into Shabbat, for especially, as I've heard many times in many different ways in these last few days, we hold on to this weather very tightly as we enjoy, especially being here tonight, in what feels like perfect weather. Ken or Kathy went off to California to find good weather, and then we have this. So we're lucky to have Kristen with us, and glad she's with us. And we turn towards our Kabbalat Shabbat, beginning with Lachado D, page 20, as we take all of those good moments from our week prior and bring them into our Shabbat. We'll share the words of Lachado D. The last stanza will face our entrance, whether that's your home or, in our case, the parking lot where we came into the synagogue, and welcome Shabbat into this space. Page 20 in our prayer books.
Let
Adodi likrat kala, pnei Shabbat nekabela.
Shamor וזכור ודיבור אחד,
השמיענו אל המיוחד, אדוני אחד ושמו אחד, השם תחילה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לקראת שבת לכו ונלכה, כי היא מקור הברכה, מראש מקדם נסוכה, סוף מעשה במחשבה תהילה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. התעוררי, התעוררי, כי באורך קומי אורי, 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 שיר דברי, כבוד אדוני עלייך נגלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. Pnei Shabbat nekabela. Please rise as we face our entrance. גם בשמחה ובצהלה, תוך אמוני עם סגולה, בואי כלה, בואי כלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. Page 26, we can remain standing. Shemei Rabbah, Almighty Raphatei, Yadlik Malchutei, Bechaychon, Ruv Yomechon, Librechei Bechot Bet Yisrael, Magava, Magava, Ruv Yisrael. page 30. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bidvaro ma'ariv aravim. So often we say this blessing as we enter into the evening, marking the change from light into darkness. But as we are Reformed Jews, we can change a few things. I think this evening, this prayer should be, thank you, God, for an evening like this. Don't let it change. Let us enjoy what is beautiful before us. Baruch atah Adonai ha'ma'ariv aravim. How beautiful it is to have evenings before us, time when we can be together as a community to say our blessings. Please join me, page 33, the top of the page. Whose kids could those be? As you taught Torah to those whose names I bear, teach me Torah too. Its mystery beckons, yet I struggle with its truth. You meant Torah for me, did you mean the struggle for me too? Don't let me struggle alone. Help me to understand, to be wise, to listen, to know. Lead me into the mystery. Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael. Shema, page 34 and 35.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem, Kivod Malchuto, Le'olam Va'ed.
Be seated as we'll join together in the Via Hafta.
Thou shalt love Adonai, the God, with all thy heart, with all thy soul, and with all thy might. And all these words which I command you on this day shall be in thy heart, shall be in thy heart. And thou shalt teach them diligently unto thy children, and thou shalt speak of them when thou sittest in thy house, when thou walkest by the way, and when thou risest up, and when thou liest down, and when thou liest down. And thou shalt bind them for a sign upon thy hand, and there shall be for frontlet between thy eyes. And thou shalt write them on the doorposts of thy house, and upon thy gates, that he may remember and do all of my commandments, and be holy unto your God, unto your God.
Join together, page 39 at the top. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught forever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there's no way to get from here to there, except by joining hands and marching together. Page 40, Mi Chamocha. Adonai love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storm. God, help us to walk with good companions, to live with hope in our hearts and eternity in our thoughts, that we may lie down in peace and rise up waiting to do your will. Hashkivenu, page 42. Page 46, please rise as we face east once again. We turn to our most personal prayers, the words of our Amidah.
Adonai
Sefatai
Sefatai
tiftach, ufi agita ilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu ve'Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzhak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor V'Hanorah, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, Vekonei Hakol, Vezocher Haste Avot V'Imahot, Umevi Gula Livnei V'neihem, Leman Shemo Be'ahava, Melech Ozer U'Moshia U'Magin, Baruch atah Adonai, Magin Avraham V'Ezrat Sarah, Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai, Mechayei HaKol atah Rav Lahoshia, Mashiva Ruach U'Morid HaGashem, Mechalkel Chaim Bechesed, Mechayei HaKol Berachamim Rabim, Somech Noflim Verofei Cholim, Umatir Asurim, Umekayem Emunato, Lishenei Afar, Micha Mocha Bal Givurot, Umido Melach, Melech Mimit Umekayem, Umatzmiach Yeshua, Beneman Atalach Otakol, Baruch atah Adonai, Mechayei HaKol. You can be seated if you'd like. Atah Kadosh v'Shimcha Kadosh, Ukdoshim b'chol yom Yahalelucha Selah, Baruch atah Adonai, Ha'el HaKadosh. Days pass and the years vanish. We walk sightless among miracles. And so we pray, God, that you fill our eyes with seeing and our minds with knowing. Let there be moments when your presence, like lightning, illumines the darkness in which we walk. Help us to see wherever we gaze, that the bush burns unconsumed. And we, clay touched by God, will reach out for holiness and exclaim in wonder, how filled with awe is this place, and we did not know it. Blessed is the Eternal One, the Holy God. Our words for the greatest source of peace, Shalom Rav. Our found page 60 in our prayer books.
Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam.
Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam.
Ki etam Kadam Lecho Hashalom. Ki etam Kadam Lecho Hashalom. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Betom Enecha Levarech et Amcha Yisrael. Be'ohet v'chosha Yishlomecha. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Tasim Leolam. Tasim Leolam.
Take a few moments for our own personal prayers. Shalom Aleinu, Ve'al Kol Yisrael, Ve'imeru Amen. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu, Ve'al Kol Yisrael, Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu, Ve'al Kol Yisrael.
Yaseh Shalom,
Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu, Ve'al Kol Yisrael.
Yaseh Shalom,
Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu, Ve'al Kol Yisrael. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu, Ve'al Kol Yisrael. Page 253, we turn from prayers for peace for the world and for our community to prayers for those individuals we know who are suffering in this moment, as we offer them a Mishaberach, a prayer for healing. In the middle of page 253, we'll add their names in the midst of the prayer as we wish for them a refuah shlema, full sense of themselves. Mishaberach Avoteinu, Bekor HaBracha, Yaimotenu. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Somewhere in my love of the outdoors and, again, nights like this, I found an affection for TV shows and documentaries, although they're not smart documentaries, so it's not as, I just use that word because I think it sounds better than just saying TV shows. Shows that depict people living out in the wilderness, especially living alone. So, while some people might binge watch The Bachelor, I'm the opposite. I don't binge watch people coming together. I love to see somebody going out there and surviving by themselves. And the further away they go, and the more alone they are, and the less resources they have, the more I will watch and for the more hours in a row. And I know I'm not the only one. First of all, because Linda Barr, who's on our executive board, told me she watches the exact same shows. Secondly, because some of the most watched YouTube videos are some of the ones that I follow. One of them, fittingly named his channel, Self-Reliance. See? We seem to have this love for watching other people find a way to survive alone. In fact, just the other day I was caught, this might be a little more generic for some of you who wouldn't watch somebody out in Alaska. How many watch the tiny homes shows? It's the same, they're just a different version of the same thing. So somebody takes their larger home, they sell their larger home, and they live in a box. I watched a woman last week who sold her home in Auckland, New Zealand, and lives in a shipping container in the woods where she can't see anybody for hundreds of miles. We're so intrigued by this idea that people can survive by themselves. Self-sufficiency. We find it admirable. Admirable not to have to rely on other people or money or things, that we can do it ourselves, that we can pull ourselves up by our own bootstraps, we can pull our own weight, we can get rid of all the things that seem to complicate our lives, and we can just do it. And yet, I think our tradition, and each of us, in fact, if we look a little further beyond the 30-minute clip that we find of someone's life, we find that this is, in fact, a myth, that none of us can ever truly be self-sufficient. And yet, it's one that we've fallen for before. I found in a book that was passed on to me, the writings of Rabbi Samuel Dresner. He wrote in 1957 the following: "The sin of which modern man is most frequently found guilty is that of self-sufficiency. We want to fly like a bird through the air, swim through the sea like a fish, to harness the energy of the sun, to uncover the bowels of the earth, to build cities of steel and glass, to erect bridges which span the waters and towers that pierce the skies, to unravel the age-old mysteries of nature. All this has led, quite naturally, to the conviction that we can solve all problems. And that when people turn to religion, they say it seems superfluous, that it's just superstition, it's an old wives' tale, and that our desire to have some being called God is really just a father complex." Any of us who live life outside of these 30-minute episodes know that what Rabbi Dresner is describing, the myth that we fall for, that you can live somewhere by yourself with no help and no resources, it simply isn't true. This week's Torah portion is the story of creation. We get to go all the way back to the beginning, and we get to all the stories of how things started, or at least how our people imagined that they started. There are lots of beginnings. The beginnings of the sky, and the beginnings of the sea, the beginnings of humanity, the beginnings of a family, the beginnings of sibling rivalry. Cain and Abel is this week. And we read in the story, one of those beginnings is the need for human beings to have help. It says in the second chapter, "And the man gave names to all of the cattle and to the birds of the sky and to all of the wild beasts that God had created. ul Adam lo matzah ezer kenegdo. But Adam could not find a fitting helper among them. So God fashioned a rib taken from Adam into a human being. And Adam said at that moment, "This one at last is the bone of my bones and the flesh of my flesh." Hence, a person leaves his parents and clings to their spouse. Since the very first chapters of our Torah, Judaism has believed that we do not venture out into the wilderness alone, that we need others, that we need each other to be, ezer kenegdo, it's a great term, fitting helpers. Tomorrow morning, we are returning to the very beginning of the Torah during Torah study, and we are returning to in-person Torah study. We're going to be right here. It's going to be a balmy 55 degrees, but the Torah warms the heart, and there will be bagels and coffee. And as I do every year at this time, I want to invite you to join us. There are thousands of reasons why someone might choose to join Torah study. It is not only for those who want the intellectual practice. Some people come for learning. Some come for free bagels and coffee. Some come because they've never read the Torah. Some come for the camaraderie of being with a group of adults, a very diverse group of adults willing to talk about the heaviest things happening in this week and the lightest topics, all in the same conversation. But this year, there's an added reason. This year we've decided to study Torah with a focus on what's called musar. Musar is not some Jewish food that you have not had, although it sounds like it. I thought it would be like a Sephardic dish. Musar is, by my definition, some would say musar is Jewish ethics, but that's too broad. Musar is like Jewish self-help. So when you go to Barnes & Noble, or you go on Amazon, more likely now, you pick up a self-help book. You're looking for something to be more self-sufficient, like that guy living out in Alaska building his own home. You're looking for a book to lose weight, but you don't want to hire somebody to help you, so you find a book so that you can do it yourself. You're struggling in your marriage or raising your kids, but you don't want a therapist to help you, so you go to Barnes & Noble, you get a self-help book. We know that the aisle of self-help books at Barnes & Noble is one of the longest. We know that many of us have on our bookshelves all sorts of self-help books. In fact, we know the very famous series, An Idiot's Guide to Just About Everything, including Judaism, so that you don't have to ask anybody any questions. You can just have a big yellow book that you can open up and never feel embarrassed. Musar is the Jewish book of self-help, but it has a different purpose than being self-sufficient. The purpose is to be holy, which is a loaded term that is hard to define. So here's my definition, and the definition that we'll be using this year in Torah study as to what our goal is. To be holy is judged by our ability to elevate the people we value or even love above the things that we idolize, which means measuring success by how fitting a helper we can be. So Musar is Judaism's way of getting us in shape, fit to be that helper by taking care of ourselves, as they tell you on the airlines, by taking care of ourselves so that we can help the person next to us. Tomorrow we will begin with the value of anava, which is translated to be humility. And we'll discuss it as it relates to the first words of Genesis. Because along with human beings, Shabbat was created this week. Musar does not just ask us to rest on Shabbat, as we often say. It asks us to make Shabbat a day that balances our character traits. So tomorrow we will discuss Genesis, and we will discuss how we can make time for ourselves. How we make a day, perhaps, where our confidence is balanced by our humility. Down the road, we'll discuss Moses' anger, Abraham's loving kindness, Joseph's ability to forgive his brothers, not only because we want to be better versions of ourselves, but because we continue to strive to be Ezer Kenegdo, the type of person who's a fitting helper for those we value. In his book, the premier scholar on Musar today is Alan Marinis, and in his book, in his introduction to the book we're going to be using in Torah study, actually, he shares the following example. He shares it as a learning that he had after he had already become a great scholar of Musar. He says, when I had already been teaching for several years, and the importance of a focus on the individual became even clearer, a chaplain in the California prison system invited me to give a talk to the women who were part of the Musar group that she led in the California Institute for Women, which was just a euphemism for a medium security women's prison. As the date for my visit approached, I found myself wondering, whom would I see when I met these imprisoned Jewish women? I had no experience in prisons. I could not imagine whether I would be meeting tough characters who fulfilled the images of hardened outlaws, or white-collar criminals who just happened to have made an unfortunate decision in their accounting or legal practice, or someone else altogether. When the day arrived, I finally stood before the group and looked out at their many faces. I saw what I should have realized much earlier, a diverse group of women who fit no single stereotype. So I said to myself, they are just neshamas, souls, in unique circumstances. As soon as I had given voice to that realization, I slapped myself on the forehead and said, we're all just like them. We are all souls in unique circumstances, which captures the basic reality of human life. We are people who find ourselves living in unique circumstances, he writes. Those of us sharing that experience right now are very fortunate to have wise ancestors who accumulated insights into human life over the past 1,100 years in the name of Musar. Although our lives are different from theirs in so many ways, human nature itself has not changed whatsoever. We can learn valuable lessons from what they observed. And so tomorrow, I invite you to join us as we begin Torah again. Here in person, if you'd like to have the warmth of coffee and bagels, or at home, if you'd like to provide them for yourself. And this time with our eyes on Musar, the Jewish self-help guide for being a fitting helper. We're invited to help each other, to join each other, for we will all be better for it. Shabbat Shalom. We'll start to conclude our service as we rise, page 282. We share the words of Aleinu. Lo asanu kegoye aratzot velo samanu
כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו קדום, וגורלנו כחומונה, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא.
Please be seated. We reflect on these words as we recall those that we've loved and lost. When I die, give what's left of me away to children and old men that wait to die. And if you need to cry, cry for your brother walking the street beside you. For when you need me, you can put your arms around anyone and give them what you need to give me. As I want to leave you something better than words or sounds, so look for me in the people I've known or loved, and if you cannot give me away, at least let me live in your eyes and not in your mind. For you can love me best by letting hands touch hands, by letting go of children that need to be free. For love doesn't die, people do. So when all that's left of me is love, give me away. This week, we remember those especially whom we've lost in recent days. Jennifer Lynn Barnhouse, Walter Hahn, Marianne Pressman, and James Hockman. We add to their names Jack Backer, Marlene Baker, Elaine M. Cohn, Louis Culliner, Martin M. Fuhrer, Cecile Gelberd, Stuart M. Guerin, Jack Heyman, Frank S. Hillson, Jenny Crackover, Jeffrey Landis, Andrea Lego, Abraham Morstein, Karen Newman, Eleanor Newman, Norman Noble, Lynn Priest, Roger Reingold, Joseph Reisman, I. Salem, Rabbi Mendy Sasankin, Edward Schulman, Fred Siegel, Sarah Subrin Sheftel, Fanny Sisherman, Ida B. Sokol, and Laura P. Wolf. If there are names you'd like to add, or names I mispronounced, please share them.
Dan Simon.
Page 294, please rise. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah, ve'alma divrach yirutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechon uvyomechon uv'chayei dechol beit Yisrael, b'agala uvizman kariv imru amen. Yehei shmei rabbah mevarach le'olam olmei olmaya, yitbarak v'yishtabak v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, yitadar v'yitalev v'yitalal shmei dekudasha b'richu, le'ila min kol birchata v'shirata, tush bechata v'nechamata, da'amiran bi'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Osei shalom b'mromav, huya asei shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. May the one who creates harmony on high bring peace to all Israel, to all the world, and especially those in mourning, as we say. Amen. Having connected with those that we loved and lost, we now bless each other with the words of the priests, page 299. May God bless you and keep you. May God's light shine upon you and be gracious unto you. May you feel God's presence within you always, and may you find peace. We'll stay standing for Kiddush and Motzi. If the kids who are here want to join us up front,
If you can ring me.
they're welcome to, if they're not trying to break into anybody's car at the moment. So kids, you can come forward. We'll start with Kiddush, and then by the time they get up here, maybe we'll be at Motzi. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu b'shabbat kodsho b'ahava uvratzon inchilanu zikaron l'maaseh v'reishit ki hu yom techila l'mikra'ei kodesh zecher l'tziat mitzrayim kivanu v'acharta v'yotanu kidashta mikol amim v'shabbat kodshecha le'ahava uvratzon inchaltanu baruch atah Adonai mekadesh HaShabbat. Amen. All right. It's very COVID safe. Only one child came, so no germs will be spread. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen. Bite? Don't pass it around. You can take a bite. You can be seated. We'll invite Andrew Meerman to share a couple quick announcements with us.
I know. Shabbat Shalom to everybody here and online tonight. I only had one announcement, so I have no notes. But it's a very important announcement. This weekend, they call it Mitzvah Day, but it's all weekend long. As Mitzvah Day, it's an opportunity for everybody to get together as one community. It's an interfaith collaboration amongst many communities to get together, make a difference in our community, doing different projects. So it's still time. If you're wondering what to do this weekend, you can get online and you can register and make a difference in our community on behalf of Temple Israel. So you should have gotten an email sent to you. So we hope that we see everybody out there this weekend, and Shabbat Shalom to everybody. You absolutely can.
I also have an announcement, I guess. Just as a reminder, on the 11th, one of our kids in Hebrew and religious school, Trisha Sheridan's son, he is doing a bar mitzvah project, and he will be cleaning up one of the cemeteries. And I was not planning on saying anything, so I don't have all of the details on hand. But reach out to Trisha if you guys want to help out. Is it on the? Is it? Did it go out?
There's a GoFundMe. He's trying to raise $1,800
Yes.
towards cleaning up the cemetery. And on the 11th, I think people are invited to go help.
Yeah.
And we can get you information if you want. But it's a great project he's doing for his bar mitzvah. So thank you. Good idea. Braden
Yes.
Sheridan. Well done. We'll close with Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu as we'll continue to enjoy this evening and a nice way to go into Shabbat. And to Eli, and Shabbat Shalom, everybody.